In the quiet town of Eldridge, there lay a place known as Hollow Hill. It was a name that sent chills through the hearts of the locals. At the top of the hill stood an old, abandoned asylum, its crumbling walls and shattered windows casting long shadows in the fading light. The townsfolk spoke of the horrors that had transpired within those walls, warning children never to wander too closer, for the spirits of the lost still roamed the grounds. One chilly autumn evening, a group of friends, Ethan, Mia, Ryan, and Chloe, decided to explore the asylum. The once vibrant trees surrounding the hill now stood bare, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The building loomed ahead, its facade dark and foreboding. The front door hung ajar, creaking softly in the wind as if inviting them inside. They had heard the chilling stories but were drawn to the thrill of the unknown. Armed with flashlights and a sense of adventure, they set off just as the sun dipped below the horizon. As they approached the asylum, the air grew colder. "Are you sure about this?" Chloe asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Come on, it'll be fun," Ethan replied, trying to sound brave. He pushed the door open, and it groaned loudly, echoing through the empty halls. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of mold and decay. The flashlight beams danced across the walls, revealing peeling paint and rusted metal fixtures. The group stepped cautiously into the main hallway, their footsteps echoing in the silence. "Look at this place," Ryan said, shining his light on a faded sign that read "Water." "It's like a scene from a horror movie." As they ventured deeper, they found remnants of the past: old wheelchairs, broken glass, and tattered patient records scattered on the floor. Each room they entered told a story of despair, the echoes of laughter and cries long gone. Suddenly, Mia paused. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "Hear what?" Ethan asked, but before she could answer, a soft whisper floated through the air, chilling them to the bone. "Get out." The group exchanged nervous glances. "It's probably just the wind," Ryan said, though his voice lacked conviction. They pressed on, determined to prove their bravery. As they moved through the asylum, they reached the common room. The once bright space was now dark and dreary, with shadows lurking in every corner. A cracked mirror hung on the wall, reflecting their distorted images. Ethan stepped closer, peering into the glass. "Look at us," he chuckled nervously. "We look like ghosts." But as he laughed, the whispers grew louder, swirling around them like a storm. "Leave now." "Okay, this is getting weird," Chloe said, her voice shaky. "Maybe we should head back." Just as they turned to leave, the door slammed shut behind them. Panic surged through the group. They rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers transformed into frantic screams, echoing through the halls. "Help! Let us out," Mia cried, pounding on the door. In that moment of chaos, a shadow flickered in the corner of the room. The friends turned, their hearts racing. A figure emerged from the darkness, a woman in a tattered white gown, her hair matted and wild. Her eyes were hollow, filled with a sorrow that seemed to reach into their souls. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice a haunting melody. "You shouldn't have come." "Who are you?" Ethan stammered, stepping back. "I am one of the lost," she replied, her gaze piercing. "We are trapped here, and now you are too." The room felt colder, the shadows closing in around them. The friends huddled together, fear gripping their hearts. "We need to find a way out," Ryan said, his voice barely above a whisper. As they searched for another exit, the whispers grew more frantic. Stay with us. The walls seemed to closing, the air heavy with despair. They stumbled into a room filled with old medical equipment, rusted and forgotten. In the center stood a table stained and worn. On the walls, faded photographs of patients stared back at them, their faces twisted in agony. Mia gasped, "This place is a nightmare." Suddenly the lights flickered and the whispers turned into anguished cries. "Help us! Help us!" Ethan felt a cold hand grip his shoulder. He spun around, but there was nothing there. "We have to go," he shouted, panic rising in his chest. They raced back to the common room, but the woman was blocking their way. "You cannot leave," she said, her voice now a low growl. "You are part of us now. Get away from us," Chloe screamed, shoving past her. They pushed against the door, but it remained locked tight. In desperation, they turned to the windows, but they were sealed shut, the glass fogged with age. The cries grew louder, echoing through the hallways, and the shadows seemed to reach for them. "Find the key," Ryan yelled, searching frantically through the debris. "There has to be a way out." As they rummaged through the wreckage, the whispers turned to laughter, mocking their fear. "You can't escape. You will join us." In a corner, Ethan spotted a small glint of metal. "Over here," he shouted, holding up a rusty key. The others rushed to his side, hope igniting in their hearts. They hurried back to the door and inserted the key. It turned with a creak and the door swung open. They stumbled out into the hallway, gasping for breath. "Run," Mia yelled, and they took off down the corridor, the whispers chasing them, growing louder and more frantic. As they reached the entrance, the shadows swelled around them, trying to pull them back. "You can't leave," the woman's voice echoed, filled with rage. They burst through the front door, tumbling onto the grass outside. The cold night air hit them like a wave, and they scrambled to their feet, not daring to look back. They ran down the hill, the asylum looming behind them, a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. Once they reached the edge of town, they stopped to catch their breath. The whispers faded into the distance, but the fear lingered. "What just happened?" Chloe gasped, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Ethan replied, still shaken. "But we can't ever go back there." From that night on, the friends avoided Hollow Hill. They shared stories of their encounter, but each time they spoke, the whispers returned, haunting their dreams. The asylum remained a dark secret in the heart of Eldridge, waiting for its next visitors. Months passed and the memories began to fade, but the whispers never truly left them. They would hear them in the quiet moments, a reminder of the horrors they had faced. One evening, while sitting around a campfire, Ethan suggested they return to confront their fears. "Maybe we can put this behind us," he said, trying to sound brave. Reluctantly, the others agreed. The thought of facing the asylum again filled them with dread, but they felt they had to try. As they approached Hollow Hill once more, the air felt thick with tension. The trees swayed ominously and the moon cast eerie shadows on the ground. The asylum stood before them, a gaping maw ready to swallow them whole. Let's just get this over with, Ryan said, his voice barely above a whisper. They stepped inside, the door creaking ominously behind them. The familiar feeling of dread washed over them as they entered the main hallway. The whispers returned, softer this time, almost like a lullaby. Stay with us. They moved cautiously, their flashlights flickering as if sensing the darkness around them. Each room they entered felt colder, the air thick with despair. They reached the common room, and there she was, the woman in white, waiting for them. Welcome back, she said, her voice dripping with sadness. You have returned to join us? No, we're not staying, Chloe shouted, but her voice trembled. The whispers grew louder, drowning out her words. Join us, join us. The friends felt a pull, as if the very walls were reaching for them. They stumbled back, trying to resist, but the shadows grew thicker, wrapping around them like a shroud. Help us, they cried, but their voices were lost in the cacophony of despair. Suddenly the lights flickered violently, and the room filled with a blinding light. The friends shielded their eyes, and when they opened them again, they found themselves back outside the asylum, gasping for breath. What just happened? Ryan asked, his voice shaking. I don't know, Ethan replied, looking around in confusion. But we need to leave. Now they ran down the hill, the whispers fading behind them. As they reached the edge of town, they turned to look back. The asylum stood silent, its dark presence looming over them. From that day on, they never spoke of Hollow Hill again. The whispers haunted their dreams, a reminder of the darkness that lay within. They went on with their lives, but a part of them always remained trapped in that asylum, forever listening to the cries of the lost. Years later, when they were older and had families of their own, the stories of Hollow Hill faded into legend, but the whispers never ceased. On quiet nights, when the wind howled through the trees, they could still hear the faint echoes calling them back, a haunting melody that would never let them forget. One fateful summer, curiosity got the better of Chloe. She suggested they visit the town library to dig deeper into the history of the asylum. Maybe we can find out what really happened there, she proposed, excitement in her voice. Reluctantly, Ethan, Mia, and Ryan agreed. They met at the library, poring over old newspapers and records. What they discovered sent chills down their spines. The asylum had been home to countless patients, many of whom had suffered unspeakable horrors. There were accounts of cruel treatments, experiments, and even reports of patients disappearing without a trace. Look at this, Mia said, pointing to an article dated back to the asylum's closing. They found bodies hidden in the walls. They were trying to keep it a secret. Ethan felt a sense of dread wash over him. We shouldn't have come here, he said, his voice low. But Chloe was undeterred. We need to know more. We can't let fear control us. That night they gathered at Ethan's house, discussing their findings. The atmosphere was tense, filled with a mix of fear and curiosity. What if we went back one last time? Ryan suggested. We could bring a camera and document everything. Chloe's eyes lit up. Yes, we can prove to ourselves that it's just a story. We can face our fears. With a sense of determination, they planned their return to Hollow Hill. Armed with flashlights, a camera, and the key they had found, they set out once more, the moon casting an eerie glow over the path. As they climbed the hill, the air grew heavy with anticipation. The trees whispered among themselves, their branches swaying in the wind. When they reached the asylum, the door creaked open as if expecting them. Inside, the air was thick with dread. The shadows seemed to shift and dance, and the whispers returned, wrapping around them like a cold embrace. Stay with us. They moved through the halls, the camera capturing every moment. But as they ventured deeper, the atmosphere changed. The air felt electric, charged with a sense of foreboding. In the common room, they set up the camera, pointing it at the entrance. "Let's see if anything happens," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. As they waited, the whispers grew louder, swelling around them like a storm. "Leave now." Suddenly the temperature dropped and their breath turned to mist. The woman in white appeared again, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Why do you return?" she asked, her voice echoing in the stillness. "We want to help you," Chloe said, her voice shaking. "We want to understand." The woman's expression darkened. "You cannot help us. You will only join our suffering." The shadows closed in, wrapping around the friends. Panic surged through them as they fought against the darkness. "We need to leave," Ryan shouted, but the shadows pulled him back. Ethan grabbed Chloe's hand. "Hold on to each other," he yelled, trying to keep them together. They stumbled back, their flashlights flickering as the whispers turned into screams. "Join us. Join us." In a desperate bid, Mia remembered the key. The door. "We need to get to the door." She pulled away from the shadows, sprinting toward the entrance. Ethan, Chloe, and Ryan followed, the darkness clawing at their heels. They reached the door, but it slammed shut, the whispers now a cacophony of anguish. "You cannot leave." With trembling hands, Mia inserted the key. It turned with a loud click, and the door burst open. They rushed outside, the cold night air hitting them like a wave. They ran down the hill, not daring to look back. The whispers faded into the distance, but the fear lingered, a reminder of the darkness they had faced. Once they reached the edge of town, they collapsed onto the grass, gasping for breath. "What just happened?" Ryan asked, his voice shaking. "I don't know," Ethan replied, still shaken. "But we can't ever go back there." From that night on, they avoided Hollow Hill. They shared stories of their encounter, but each time they spoke, the whispers returned, haunting their dreams. The asylum remained a dark secret in the heart of Eldridge, waiting for its next visitors. Years passed, and the memories began to fade, but the whispers never truly left them. On quiet nights, when the wind howled through the trees, they could still hear the faint echoes calling them back, a haunting melody that would never let them forget. And so the asylum waited, its doors forever open, ready to welcome the next curious souls who dared to explore the darkness within.